Indian American community committed to preserving the vast customs of a vibrant cultural heritage.
Welcome to Darshan America, folks. We come to you from Washington, D.C. My name is Ramesh, Butani.
And I'm Aastha, Verma.
What a fantastic history lesson Egyptians taught us. In 18 days, regime change, and it has really scared the neighbors. Of course, you know, the Egyptians have created this new product called democracy with nonviolence and military on your side.
That's the key thing here. There's a couple of things about this revolution which are really amazing. One, this was done nonviolently. I think if Gandhi had been alive today, he would have been proud of the way this particular protest went down, because you didn't really see an eruption of violence, even though the military stood by. And that was the key point, too. They didn't take sides immediately. Then eventually they went towards the protesters, but they did not crack down on the protesters, which is what you saw happen in uprisings that happened not too long ago in Iran.
In Iran, yeah.
And many of us will remember in China, in Tiananmen Square, when I was much younger in school. So you see this happening, and you fear the worst, and yet in this case, things landed out in a positive outcome. And the second point is the role of social media. You know, you have been hearing, I'm sure all of us have been paying attention to the news and understanding that a lot of the word got out. A lot of the assembly that was done and organizing the people was done through social media, Facebook, Twitter. And for a time, the government of Egypt even tried to stop. They tried to do the pull the plug strategy, which was to shut down the internet. And it didn't work.
It did not work.
It didn't work. And I think going forward, other countries who try to use the internet as a way to restrict communication by pulling the plug, they're going to realize soon that it also doesn't work.
But you know, Iranian revolution is about to start again. One of the things you want to see is the military. Last time they quashed this. But this time, if they stand on the side, for 18 days, another regime gone.
Well, you wonder how much of this is like a tidal wave effect. You know, this started originally in Tunisia, and it went from Tunisia over into Egypt. They were predicting that something like this could happen in Egypt, and then here we watched it happen over the course of 18 days. Now the question is, where else is it going next? You see the King of Jordan disbanded his cabinet because he was worried. You're hearing rumblings of similar kind of uprising taking place in Yemen. And you're hearing the other countries in the Middle East, that whole region, this has been called an earthquake that has really shaken the foundation of that whole region. So you wonder where this is going next.
Well, you know, when the imperialism left Asia as well as Middle East and Africa, the new regimes came in and they were more oppressive, many of them. And now that entire model of ruling is going away. This is a new democracy that's coming up. Here in America, we were so glad to see it. You know, history takes such a long time.
It was the drama to watch night after night. I mean, I know that I was caught up in it, and I was checking the news frequently throughout the day to see, you know, did he resign, didn't he resign, and where the story would go next. But it really did take a lot less time than I thought it would. And in the end, there was some drama, too, because we thought the president would resign, and then he didn't, and then he did. But interestingly enough, you know, President Obama's administration caught a lot of heat for this because, you know, there were some critics out there that said that he didn't either make his case strongly enough to try to oust President Mubarak. On the other hand, some people are saying, well, you know, he couldn't have done that in his role and position. Interestingly enough, I saw on the Sunday morning talk shows, Fareed Zakaria did a brilliant analysis of what other presidents have done in President Obama's shoes, you know, against all this criticism President Obama has received. And in fact, the similar situation happened, other different countries, happened to President Clinton, happened to Ronald Reagan. And in those few cases, those presidents took much longer, months, to arrive at a position which they could then promote and then use as a way to influence the other country. President Obama did not have very much reaction time. He did this very quickly. He couldn't, you know, pick one side very clearly. And then you see how things evolved. And I think he actually ended up looking better at the outcome of this versus if he had taken a stronger stand early on.
Well, you know, in the other president's time, it didn't roll as fast as this one did. And I was reading an interview between the Palestine Authority and the Washington Post reporter in which he says President Obama really should not have interfered. We have matured. We understand. Our population says out, we need to be out. And they were asking him, well, Egypt has been one of the states that have supported you. Do you think the new regime? He said, look, no regime should support some other regime without a sustainability of relationship, which I really like. So, folks, Middle East is not done. It's just started to cook now. I don't think revolution is going to go to India. Not yet.
Well,
anyways, moving on, folks, you saw President Obama submit his budget to the Congress, and it is for $3.7 trillion. I still remember the budget of $200 billion, not too far in the past. $3.7 trillion budget, 1.6 trillion red ink.
I know, this is getting a lot of buzz because, as you said, we're living in a more complex world, and some of that complexity demands additional dollars to be spent to maintain it. For example, our new border security. For example, our healthcare reform. For example, our financial meltdown that we had to do bailouts for. We're just living in a far more complex world than maybe we lived in before, and therefore these budgets get bigger and bigger and bigger every year. One thing I noticed that was interesting, up until now, we have talked about the Democratic Party sort of being discombobulated, not very well joined. The Congress was sometimes at odds with the White House and so forth. And all the whole time, the Republican Party looked like they were very well unified.
Yeah.